So I've been getting a lot of requests to basically demonstrate how to make shadows. The shadows or the cast shadows that will come off the athlete, as well as the shadows that kind of lie under the feet of each of the athletes. It's actually a really easy process, and there's so many different ways of doing it. A lot of people do it using the 3D tools, which I also use those tools. However, sometimes there's some little funkiness to it, so I don't typically do that with these types of pictures. Not only that, the shadows, like in stadium settings, are kind of all over the place. So the way I do it is, like I said, really easy, and we'll get right into it. So as you can see here, I've got my athlete on its own separate layer. From here, I'll basically I'll duplicate the layer. And the bottom layer, I will basically change the hue and saturation all the way down and make sure it's a clipped mask here. And then from here, I'll basically just merge these two layers together. As you can see here, the top layer, it still has the color in it. The bottom layer does not. So from here, what I'll do is I will basically go up to Edit and go to Transform. And I will, typically just go to Free Transform first. Kind of drag the shadows below, just like this. Kind of set up to the exact place I like. So this right here is already looking like a decent shadow, assuming that the light source was directly behind him. But in this case, we have two light sources that we'll be using. The stadium kind of back to the right, and then the other one back to the left. The stadium lights from the right and the left. So from here, what I'll do is I'll go back up to Edit and go to Transform and go to either Skew or Distort. In this case, I'll go to Skew because it's a little bit easier just to kind of move it over just like that. Okay. From here, I will basically duplicate this bottom layer. And then from here, I'll go back to Edit and I'll go to Skew and I'll basically change it to the other side. So now, essentially, we have two cast shadows. The one on the bottom right here theoretically would be coming from this set of lights, and this front one, which would be coming from this back set of lights, the back right set of lights. So now I'll basically group these together just so they're a little bit easier to work with. And I'll kind of modify kind of where they lie. I can even zoom in just to make sure that they're in the spot that I like. And it's never going to be perfect, right? Especially if one of the feet is kind of behind the other, you'll have to kind of just adjust it using the transform tools. It's fairly simple, but keep in mind it doesn't have to be perfect, because what we'll end up doing is taking both of these shadows and essentially going to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and setting it just kind of how you think it should be. I think that's pretty good right there. Then we'll do the same for the other one. Then from here, I'll actually change the opacity just a bit. I'll lower it. And I will also change both of these to multiply. So right now it's looking pretty decent. Of course, you can always adjust them as you see fit. That's pretty good. Again, I'll look at it. That's not too bad. The one on the right side would probably be a little bit longer, but either way, you get the point. So now from here, what I'll do is I'll zoom into the feet a little bit more, and I'll just cast shadows. I'll actually create another layer under the cast shadows. I'll get my brush, keep it on black, and on my brush tools, I basically take this and I squash it a little bit. And see, from 100 down to about 50 or 45, give or take. What I'll do is basically just use the brush tool to get under the shoes just a bit. Just so it creates that connection from the feet to the ground. If I want to do a little bit more, increase this, about the size of the athlete, give or take. Just like that. And then I will also change this to multiply. So as you can see here, here's like the ground shadows. I might actually even move this. No, it's good. The ground shadows and the cast shadows. So now, if you look at it all together, it's the ground shadows, cast shadows. And of course, the cast shadows, if you wanted to do, a few more shadows or two more shadows that kind of go off the back, you can certainly do that. And one way to do it is just to basically duplicate this group. Just adjust it as shown right there. And then I would definitely change the opacity to these a little bit more, just as you see fit, and good to go. Too much there. Like I said, it's, the shadows are always different for each of the athletes or the subjects, and you never have to really get them perfect because it's really hard to notice whether or not they're 100% perfect or not. I mean, shadows are just so many different, going so many different angles and so many options all the time. So it's really easy just to play with it to make it look right. Really, the goal that I look at with shadows is making sure that the subject or the athlete appears to actually be on the ground, and so it's real important to have those bottom shadows, these ones, to give it that look of them actually making a connection to the ground. Otherwise, it looks kind of awkward if possibly floating around or whatever. But I hope that helps. Free for any questions if needs be. Thank you.